What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Michelle Renee from IamMichelleRenee.com. And today I have a very, very, very special guest that I'm excited to have. Everybody welcome Dr. Carmen April-Washington. Hey, Dr. Carmen. How
Hey,
are
good morning.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Absolutely wonderful. Can you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what your brand is?
Yes. Well, again, I'm Dr. Carmen April-Washington. I live here in Nashville, Tennessee now. Have been here for 10 years, which is crazy that it's been that long. So hometown is Canton, Mississippi. I was actually born, I was born in Ohio, and we moved to Mississippi when I was 12, which is where both of my parents are from. So the way that we know each other is through Mississippi State University.
Absolutely.
Great times there.
Absolutely.
So I am a podiatrist here in the Nashville area and have my own practice that I started almost 10 years ago. So that is an interesting journey as well. I moved to a brand new city that I had never lived in before and immediately started my practice. So 10 years later, I am still rocking and rolling every day. It's such a blessing, and I love being able to do what I do for patients, to inspire other people, to help mentor young people who want to enter the medical field. And it's just all a blessing.
That is so phenomenal. You're such a dope Black woman. Yes, we first got our introduction to one another at Mississippi State. And if I'm not mistaken, you were one of the team trainers, correct?
I was, yeah. So when I was at Mississippi State, I was a student athletic trainer. So I worked with football team, with women's basketball, with volleyball, and then with the cheerleaders as well. So it was an amazing time. That's kind of like when people always ask me, so how did you choose feet?
Yeah.
That was the springboard.
Basically, you were around a lot of feet, wrapping a lot of ankles.
I was. And I loved it. I always knew that I wanted to go into medicine, but it was that experience being a student athletic trainer at Mississippi State that, that kind of sent me in that direction. I'm so appreciative of that experience.
That's amazing. That kind of leads into my question, because I was going to ask you, how did you know, did you know at a young age that you wanted to be a doctor? And we know now what kind of led you to podiatry, but at what age did you say, you know what, I want to be a doctor?
Yeah, so as long as I can remember. So I have those parents who basically started encouraging me super early that this is something, you would make an awesome doctor. They have that story of my pediatrician, delivering me and saying, oh, she looks like she's going to be a doctor when she grows up, at least with that. That's what they try to say.
She was born for this.
Yes. And in many ways, I think that I was, because I love what I do. So I always knew that I wanted to go into medicine, and, through school, through junior high and high school, I did a lot of the summer camps, like math and science summer programs and medical programs, and did that as well through college, but never really knew what specialty. And oftentimes people don't know what specialty until you really kind of get going in it. People just know, okay, I want to go into medicine, or I want to be a doctor. And like I said, just circling back to the athletic training, that really was the catalyst. I was a kinesiology pre-med major at Mississippi State. So I was always, my interest was always a little different than just regular, I shouldn't say regular, but traditional path of biology or chemistry and pre-med. I was always so interested in the kinesiology, the physiology, about the body specifically. And so it comes full circle.
That's so amazing. Of course, I have the glitter gang, and with my babies, they all want to be so many different things. And everyone knows, my oldest, she's really, really big into hair, but she also wants to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. And so I told her, I was like, you can do both. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do hair and you can be a doctor. Let's find you some people to partner with so you can learn about medicine. But also, let's find you some people to partner with so you can learn about this trade that you want to pick up as well. The thing that I love about you most, and I always comment on your posts or different things like that, is that you're a doctor. That's one facet. but you have so many other amazing talents that we're going to get into in just a minute. But I want to talk a little bit about how your brand and your business and just your practice affects the African-American community.
Yeah, so a lot of what I do with podiatry, my everyday work, is surrounding diabetes.
Right.
So I see any and everything that can affect the foot and ankle. So whether that is, sprains, strains, ingrown toenails, fractures, bullet wounds. I mean, just literally whatever, your weekend warriors out there trying to play with their kids and that type thing and sustain injuries. I know we're at that age, honey, we're getting there. So I see a lot of that, but then I also see a large population of diabetic patients.
Yeah.
And so the reason for that is that diabetic patients tend to have some very specific issues that can occur with their feet. Some of those things include a loss of sensation in their feet. So that's called diabetic peripheral neuropathy, where you would be surprised. These people can step on things and not even feel it when their diabetes has progressed. The peripheral neuropathy has progressed. I literally have pulled nails, tacks, glass, toothpicks, sewing needles, pine needles, medicine, metal, any and everything that you can imagine out of diabetics' feet. Oftentimes, it's when it has caused an infection, when these things have caused an infection because they don't know they're there. So it could be 4 or 5 days later, they're finding out that these things are there because there starts to become an odor, or they see blood in their sock, or they see blood on the bathroom floor when they're getting out the bath or shower. So that's one of the things. 2, circulation issues that can also lead, to very severe circulatory compromise, gangrene issues. So when you hear about diabetics having amputations, a lot of times it comes from one or both of those things: the lack of proper circulation, and 2, the issues with peripheral neuropathy that, causes things to happen to their feet that they don't feel until they've progressed beyond a point of return, basically. Right. And so what I do in my practice is to try my best to prevent those things. So with my regular diabetic patients, I see them several times a year. I'm able to teach them what to look for. So instead of us waiting for problems to happen on the back end, I'm working to try to prevent those. And so for people who are diabetic and see a podiatrist on a regular basis, meaning several times a year, we see about an 80+% improvement rate in eliminating, preventing and eliminating those things from happening in the first place. Those people know what to look for. They know to call me as soon as they notice something that's not right with them. And like I teach them all the time, yeah, you come and see me every couple of months, but your feet are attached to you 365 days of the year.
Every day.
So, yes, every day. So if I can teach you what to look for, that, you're only helping both of us here, especially yourself.
Absolutely. And that hits really, really personal with having a dad who his entire life had diabetes and died from complications from diabetes because he would not really want to be treated from those different things. Losing a brother to the same thing, and then seeing just how that illness can really, it debilitates you if you're not conscious of those things. So just thinking about how some of that education would have been beneficial 20 something years ago, just because it's such a prevalent piece in our community. So knowing that you are doing this work is so powerful, and I'm so appreciative, and it makes me even more excited to share you, because people just don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. Right. So being able to have that level of education and provide tools to support it is phenomenal. Now, tell me a little bit about your website, drcarmenapril.com. Does that provide information for people who are looking to learn more about their health?
So I call the drcarmenapril.com like my Grand Central Station for everything. So I've been blogging on there for several years. I share a lot of things that are, that are important to me, that tug at my heartstrings, things that are happening with, organizations that I'm involved with in the community. Now, you can find on that site a link to my specific practice website, which is www.myfoothealthonline.com. And on that website, so that's the website for my practice, yes, there is information on there specifically about various foot and ankle conditions, issues, and my approach to it, how I treat those.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you touched on being a blogger. Oh my gosh. So you have captured me over the last probably decade. Not
you.
just with just being a phenomenal, truly intuitive, educated, just dope Black woman. You are truly an influencer. You are a woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and you are very, very, very involved with your community. From the way that you support your sorority to the work that you do with mentoring. Give us just a little nugget, because I know you do a lot of things, but give us a nugget of some of those things that if we were to visit drcarmenapril.com, we get to see a glimpse of that.
Yeah, so you will see some of the things that I do with my sorority chapter here. So of course I became a member at Mississippi State, was initiated into the Lambda Eta chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha at Mississippi State, and I'm very involved here. Number one, because service is really at the core of who I am.
Absolutely.
And number two, it just being in regular fellowship with other women is so empowering. It helps to recharge you.
Yeah.
It was when I first moved to Nashville, just being able to literally tap into my chapter here made me feel at home immediately. That's number one. Many of them have like literally been like a personal PR team for me. Yeah. They refer patients to me all the time. Several of them are my patients. I remember one day I had three of my sorority sisters in my office at the same time. It was kind of funny because none of them, like, they didn't know. I had them in separate rooms and everything. So yeah, it was kind of funny, but they've been the biggest support for me, and I appreciate that. Another organization that I'm involved with that means so much to me is the Junior League of Nashville.
Yes.
And so I do a lot with that organization. So my commitment to service started so young. Mm-hmm. With my mother. So my mother was actually the first African-American woman in the Junior League of Jackson, Mississippi.
Wow. And you know that's major, because that's major.
That's major. That is major.
As a Miss Fellow Mississippi girl, we know how major that is.
Yes. So she was the first. And she would often take us around to her service projects, because a lot of the organizations that they serve, the communities that they serve, the recipients, the people look like us.
Right.
And so it was really important for my mother to say, hey, the representation does matter, even back then. And that's where that came from. So through my work with Junior League of Nashville, I work with In Slavery, Tennessee, which is such a phenomenal organization that addresses the issue of human trafficking, sex trafficking, which is everywhere.
Yes.
It happens in Nashville. There's some very unique reasons of, why Nashville is such a hotbed, but it's literally, there is not a single state, city, county in this country that is not affected by sex trafficking. And so one of the things that we do is that we conduct the trainings for people in the community. So for any organization, whether, it be sororities, whether, say your sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, says, hey, we want somebody to come and talk to us about sex trafficking, or whether it's the Girl Scouts. I've done it for Girl Scouts. I've done it for church groups. We go out and we provide the trainings to make sure that people really understand what sex trafficking is, because I can promise you what it is not is a girl walking down the street, somebody pulls up in a white van, kidnaps her, puts her in the van, and takes off. Those things happen, but that's called kidnapping.
Right.
That is not human trafficking. Human trafficking is a whole lot more sophisticated. You may see human trafficking victims in your classroom, you know, as a teacher.
Yep.
You may see human trafficking victims at church. You know, some of them still live with their parents, or
it's more normalized than what people think. It's right in front of us.
It's right in front of us. And that's why it's so important for people to understand what it truly looks like, so that if you see a girl in your class who is falling asleep all the time, or all of a sudden overnight she starts dressing more provocatively, or has, you know, a cell phone that only one person can get in touch with her on, like those type things, it's important for people to know what it truly looks like so that you can address it. So being able to provide those trainings on behalf of In Slavery Tennessee and the Junior League of Nashville has been life-changing for me. I mean, I know that probably sounds like an over-exaggeration, but it's not.
No, I believe that.
Yeah, that's like really close to my heart. So those are a couple things that are important.
Okay, so your dope meter just went like all the way up. It was already high and it just went through the roof.
Thank you.
That really means so much. One of the things that I want to know is if there's anything else that you would want people who may not be able to get the gist just in this few minute interview or whatever. What is it something that you would want them to know about you and your brand, and what it is that Dr. Carmen April-Washington stands for?
Yeah, so my personal brand, my personal mission is to uplift, encourage, and empower.
Yes.
And I think that encompasses everything that I do, from the work that I do professionally as a podiatrist to the work that I do in my community. It's like when I see a need, I feel like I have to do what I can to address it. And absolutely. You know, everybody can't do everything, but we can all do something. And so you find what that something is. Absolutely. And you do the best that you can. One thing that I think is important about, you know, for women to understand is like there's an evolution to us. You know what I mean? Like we are not the same women that we were in college. Like college was good.
It was.
You know, yeah. I things that we did then, things that we did in high school, we did. It's evolution. Like this thing called life is a journey. It is not a destination. And so it's okay to like something now that we didn't necessarily like 10, 15, 20 years ago, to be interested in something now that we weren't interested in years ago. So whatever those things are that pique your interest, go, you know, follow them, go for it. Like what's stopping you?
Yes. Oh, you just preached a sermon. There's so many of us who feel afraid of change or really afraid of evolution. My husband and I talk about that all the time. I'm like, even in our marriage, we're evolving. We are not the people who got married 5 years ago. We're definitely not the people who met each other 14 years ago.
Right.
And you have to be willing to even love a person through their evolution and evolve with them or evolve on your own, and then finding that common place. And I think that's beautiful, because even as we evolve through the things that we like, we even evolve in the way that we interact with people, right? Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that. Okay, so final question, and I try to ask all of my interviewees this question is, what is one word that affirms who you are?
So I think that word would be determined. And it's because I believe Marie Forleo coined this term, everything, or this phrase, everything is figure outable. And I believe that. Like, I don't care what is thrown your way, everything is figure outable.
That's right.
And you just have to be determined enough to figure it out. You have to. You know, I mean, when I got here, like I said, I moved here 10 years ago. I started my practice roughly 10 years ago. I had never lived in Nashville full time before then. I had visited here. I had done a medical program at Fisk-Meharry and Vanderbilt years before, I think the year between my junior and senior year when I was at Mississippi State, and loved it. But when I came here with the idea to work for another practice, which by week 2 was a complete nightmare. And so I knew at that point, I was like, this ain't gonna work. I'm starting my own thing. And I did. So I was in a new place that I hardly knew anybody. You know, my sister was here at the time. She was in dental school at Meharry, but it was her last year. So I knew she was leaving,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the year, and I had to make it work. I figured it out. So
You did, and that's determination.
It is. And I think it's something that we should absolutely be teaching young kids, and specifically our young girls. You will find a way. You just have to be determined enough.
That's right.
And convince yourself that it can happen, and you can do it. You can absolutely do it, whatever you want to do.
Affirmation. What an affirmation. Like, you are such a powerhouse of a person.
Oh,
and I'm so grateful to know you. And I'm even more honored that you were willing to come and have this conversation with me. Thank you so much, Dr. Carmen.
My pleasure. Well, I'm proud of you. And I think everything that you've done in this blog, like I love blogs. So like I said, from one blogger to another, welcome.
Thank you.
Blogging communities they're so much fun, and they allow you just to meet some really awesome other people. You have always been amazing. You have so much energy and enthusiasm, and obviously we can see that in what you're doing. So thank you for having me be here today, and I know you're going to do great things.
Thank you so much. That means the world.